Welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. I have in this, all the URLs are in the description of the video for your convenience. All this was important enough to bring it up, some of it, but it's off of Liberty headline. City of Seattle sued for that off there. Okay, here we go. City of Seattle sued for robbing right to choose tenants. Pacific Legal Foundation challenged Seattle's new mandate to the first qualified person who applies for a unit. The freedom to choose among exercise non-discriminatory who will live in line, or first in time it's called, rule to the lawsuit County Superior Court. PLF represents free of charge a number of small landlords whose own personal security are undercut by the city's denial of their freedoms to make about tenants. Time, first of its kind, denied rights. Seattle City Council on August 9th of 2016. The first in time took effect on January the 1st. It amends Seattle's open housing ordinance to force landlords to rent to the first prospective of all the screening criteria necessary for the approval of the application. 118755. It an unfair practice for a landlord qualified tenants, subject to as well as government financial penalties, $55,000 for multiple alleged violations. Council member Lisa Herbold is the first of its kind to be imposed by a U.S. city. Rests on Article 1, Section 16 of the Washington Constitution, which says property shall be taken for public or private use without just compensation. Or the Washington has held that includes the right to sell or lease property on a non-discriminatory basis to a person of your choosing. Landlords, they basically have no say in who can live in the units. Seattle is strict fundamental right, said PLF attorney. Owners should have the freedom to use their judgment and discretion to decide on a non-discriminatory basis who would be the best and the most responsible. The city is robbing them of an important property ownership control over who lives in your property. This amounts to, and government can't do that without reimbursing the property owner. All landlords victimized by or leasing out a residential unit, landlord to a close business relationship with the tenant for a number of years. Seattle is now the ability to make reasonable choices as to whom they want to enter into those contractual relationships with. In this lawsuit, scale landlords directly harmed by being denied who may rent their property. Moreover, as they will harm tenants by driving up rents, increasing evictions, and deterring people from becoming landlords units. This law hurts mom and pop landlords and low income tenants. Plaintiff Marilyn Yim and her husband and a triplex in Seattle. Children, they live in one of the triplex units. They could not afford to live this rental income. They have never denied tenancy to anyone based on membership class. They merely value the Indeed, they cannot to the losses from a tenancy gone. Moreover, children be their careful discretion. The Yims treasure their ability to ensure compatibility and safety by eligible our literally owners renting our home to make it affordable for our family and the council's actions us, but the very people they want Yim. We aren't large capital reserve or with hundreds of rentals spread one bad 10 years to recover from financially. The primary way we have to manage is by carefully selecting tenants and deposits. The new city of that flexibility. Undue risk, we can no longer afford to charge rents or give a break to good people who are just starting out or rebuilding setbacks. Actions are bad for tenants and bad to make Seattle and fill an important niche in our rental. Many prospective tenants will find they don't have a chance unless they are the first to see it and they meet the steep criteria. Will also increase evictions with landlords no longer able to select the tenant, and it will reduce the number of rentals as small landlords decide it isn't worth the risk and sell their properties. Says this law can put women landlords. Plaintiff Kelly Lyles is a single woman who Seattle. She is an artist, primarily afford living and working in Seattle. She is against any member of class, rather non-discriminatory discretion in selecting her tenants is her ability to gain income as a small landlord. She cannot afford a month's worth of rent. Does the an unlawful detainer action. A woman who interacts frequently when considerations cannot be adequately general rental have to hire the first person to show up with a decent resume, says Ms. Lyles. This law would be ridiculous if it was inherited a small amount of money for several years in order to purchase my rental. I'm very concerned in time mandate from childhood to trust our gut. I'm denied that I have no longer for whom I entrust my and life savings, not to mention my personal safety. Existing laws on the books protecting tenants from discrimination. This new one at a price, robbing landlords of protection. The Davis family end up costing tenants more and excluded ones. Uh, Scott complex in the Green Lake area. Mr. Davis also owns and runs a small business, the Davis Sign Company. He serves as an important supplement to the Davis family income. The city's first in-time mandate on small after hours and do not have the capital to hire a management company or absorb the cost of admission, said Scott Davis. We will be forced to make strict requirements to protect our exposure and liability. To use our best discretion, the result will be to exclude good tenants who are able to make towards the fastest applicant and does nothing to protect seeks to help. As a result of this new rule, we have substantially raised our rents across the board with the anticipation of being forced to hire a property management company and avoid the future of the city and the rules that are being implemented. Their children are at risk and manages the 6-unit apartment building through the LLC. The rental income is used for the 3 Bennis Children's College Fund. The Bennis use the discretion they have enjoyed in selecting tenants on a Tory basis. Now they are robbed of the discretion to select the best, finding the prospects for this investment for their children's future education. The case City of Seattle. More information, including the complaint and the blog post, is www.org. More on that. Western journalism to cooperate. Here we go. Major retail for bankruptcy, 800 stores. In February of 2015, following the closing of over 2,300 of its retail stores, Radio Shack, in an attempt to rescue the electronics, General and Sprint partnered with Radio Shack to create General Wireless Operations Incorporated. The move failed. Filed for bankruptcy, surprisingly poor mobile. The reason of the partnership between General Wireless, Sprint took of Radio Shack floor space of the company's employees. It was to integrate Sprint stores to increase the potential customer base. Try to get it to scroll up here a little bit. It's got some video in it that's trying to play, and that's what's slowing it down here a little bit. It says, according to the Bloomberg Markets, court papers place the company assets at $100 million, while liabilities are listed at $500 million. Come on, hamster. In an early report, news suggested that the bankruptcy of the company and the ease of online shopping have also contributed to the company's need to file for bankruptcy. Get the video to shut off. There we go. I'm of all this online stuff shutting everything down. I think that the economy has a lot of people out of work and a lot of people that aren't shopping, whether it be online or offline. Quick, in the electronics line, Radio Shack was a place. They stock of stuff, something obscure. You know, you could run in, get it, go home, hook up whatever it was up that you needed to hook up. You didn't have to wait for it to come in the mail. So I'd buy all this online thing. Halves off of Bloomberg, it says China developing advanced spaceship that can land on the moon. This, if you want to pull it up and see that article, is out of Beijing. Developing an advanced new spaceship capable of low Earth orbit, according to another bold step, and that a number of rocket launches last year. Science and Technology Daily cited spaceship engineer Zhang as saying the new craft would be recoverable and have room for multiple astronauts. Details were given in the Tuesday report. Zhang, as a comparison, the Orion spacecraft being developed by NASA and Space Agency. The agency hopes Orion will carry astronauts into space by 2023. Shenzhou space capsule used on all 6 of its crewed missions is based on Russia's Soyuz and is capable of carrying 3 astronauts in its re-entry module to crewed space flight, launching its first man into space in 2003, but has advanced rapidly since then. Recent crewed mission spent a month aboard a Chinese space station late last year. A fully functioning permanent crewed spacecraft station is on course to begin operations in around 5 years, and a manned lunar mission has been suggesting the future. Firmly established big 3 in space travel, China last year moved ahead of Russia for the first time in a number of rocket launches, and the United States at 22. According to Harvard University physicist Jonathan McDowell, Russia had 17 launches, while the U.S. might have had several more if SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket had been grounded following a September 1 launch pad explosion. Here's that information. The next one that we have here, this is off of LA Times. Troubled covert agency is responsible for trucking nuclear bombs across America each day, it says. Scroll up. He's running as fast as 3 little legs will take him. Slowly but surely, here we go. Come on. This does have some video in it if you want to pull it up and take a look at that. I think we're going here. It says unmarked 18 wheels interstates and 2-lane highways. They're hauling the most lethal cargo there is, nuclear bombs. Warheads from missile silos, bomber bases, and submarine nuclear weapons labs across is operated by Office of Secure Transportation within the U.S. Department of Intent and Secrecy outside the government. The $237 million a year operates a fleet of many of them veterans of the Afghanistan war, making sure nuclear weapons and jumped. Hang on. Just as it would. Come on, hamster. I'll give him a second here. I see the wheel spinning, so I know he's working on this. Sakes. Well, maybe that's interrupting it. Let's see. Okay, now back to the top of it. Mork used to say Shazbot. Anybody remember Mork and Mindy? There we Okay, we're getting closer. Um, off here. Um, it operates a fleet of 42 highly armed couriers. Many of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars responsible for making sure nuclear weapons and components pass through Foggy Mountain urban traffic jams without incident. Office is about to become more crucial than ever as the U.S. embarks on a $1 trillion nuclear arsenal that will require thousands of additional warhead shipments over the next 15 years. The increased workload will agency already struggling with problems of forced overtime, high driver turnover, old trucks, worker raising questions about its attack and more sophisticated terrorism of weapons in coming years, and we should be worried, said Robert Alvarez, a former deputy assistant energy secretary who now focuses on nuclear and energy issues for the Institute of Studies in Washington. Assume the worst case scenario when we are hauling nuclear weapons around the country. This would be a terrorist group hijacking a truck and obtaining a multi-kiloton hydrogen bomb. The terror threat is significant, said one high-level Energy Department official who mentioned anonymity because he was not authorized to discuss the program publicly. If you are in one of the communities along the route, worry about a map here, say transporting nukes, the Department of Energy's armored convoys cover about 3 million miles a year hauling nuclear weapons and their parts. The map shows military bases and the weapons facilities routes. If you want to take a look at that, you can pull that map up. Times reviewed government documents dating back 2 decades and interviewed dozens of government officials, former military officers, arms control advocates to examine the agency. The picture is an organization hampered by insular management, a crisis of morale among the ranks, and outdated equipment. Findings of the Times investigation, the agency is 48 agents short of its planned staffing of 370, a result of budget cuts, tactics classes 2011 and 2012 for lack of money. More than a third of the workforce has been putting in more than 900 hours a year of overtime. Career and Energy Department officials say has contributed to a breakdown in morale. And in 2010, an inquiry by the Energy Department's Inspector General found widespread alcohol problems. It cited 16 alcohol-related incidents per period, including an agent on a 2007 mission who was arrested for public intoxication, and 2 agents on a 2009 mission who were handcuffed after a fight at a bar. In 2014, the commander of the agency's operation at the Y-12 National Security Complex in Tennessee threatened to kill an employee in an altercation, but no disciplinary action was taken. The agency's top executive in 2009 was charged with drunk driving after police found him parked on a sidewalk, beer and a blood alcohol concentration of 0.15%, twice the legal limit, according to the New Mexico court records. Agency's truck fleet is antiquated by commercial standards and well past its operational life, even under the department's own guidelines. Tractors are more than 15 years old. Security trailers used by the agency older, designed before the current era of terrorist threats. How the agency wound up in this state is a story of neglect that begins at the end of the Cold War. the Soviet Union broke apart in 1991, the chances of a nuclear attack faded. The U.S. dramatically reduced its nuclear stockpile and gave its less as military priorities shifted. The Transportation Office budget and was hit by big cuts in some years, leading to staffing shortages and delays in updating equipment, working long hours of overtime, which led to management breakdowns. The asserts that it has maintained a high level of security and has never lost a weapon, involved in several accidents. Denied repeated requests for interviews with statement record for more than 40 years, even after driving the equivalent of a trip to Mars. Cargo in transit, it said. And one of its most stringent was breached. The Inspector General found in 2014 when an employee had access to a nuclear weapon on a, according to two knowledgeable person in question, had lost his human reliability rating, which is based on screening for drugs, alcohol abuse, or mental health problems. Under the rules, the unidentified employee would not have been allowed on the mission. The employee military from the assignment. Or say the transportation office for an attack than it used to be. Representative Mac Thornberry, Texas Republican, the House Armed Services Committee, said in an interview, like other parts of the nuclear enterprise, the agency has been allowed to, after the country has focused on other things. Is the Achilles heel of nuclear. The United States has 4,018 nuclear warheads. About 450 are those, an additional 1,000 or so are on submarines, which dock at bases in Washington and Georgia. More bombs are assigned to the U.S. Strategic Bomber Fleet, Louisiana, Missouri, and a reserve stockpile near the Transportation Office headquarters at Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico. A complex physics machine, as many as 6,000 parts, tanks of gas, battery type explosives, and radios, testing and maintenance. To perform these services don't travel to the weapons go to them. And driven to the government for working on live nuclear warheads, the Pantex plant outside Amarillo Panhandle. From there are up to government plants across the country. Uranium assemblies to Tennessee, plutonium parts to New Mexico, radioactive gas canisters to South Carolina, non-nuclear classified parts to California, and to Kansas City. Are then returned to Texas so the warheads can be reassembled and trucked back for military base. This system dates back to the 1950s, rapid accompanied the Cold War across the nation to ensure could not be destroyed in a focused missile strike. The same facilities that service those weapons, but exactly and where they actually came down to politics as members of Congress during high-paying jobs. Is an unwieldy system that requires some of the most dangerous system to be routinely shipped since journeys from one end of the country to the other. Organization expects this has on an antiquated and system that was created at a time of emergency, said Nick Vyas, an industrial at USC. If this were a private operation, it would be out of business in less than 90 days, he said. No person in their right mind would service like this. Then the efficiencies in moving so many parts, vulnerability inherent on the high experts said, is the Achilles heel of the nuclear security, and everyone knows that, said Bruce Blair, a retired Air Force missile officer, Princeton University researcher, and founder of Global Zero Elimination of Nuclear Danger is not a traffic accident. Even a fiery crash is not supposed to explode a warhead, but a high. An age of terrorism, big risk anytime you decide to move nuclear material into public long distance, bad things happen. Present potential intruders with vehicles, including shock delivering systems, use immobilizing axles designed to trailer from being towed away, according to a nuclear weapons expert. The trucks will kill you, a scientist involved said. The energy ex-soldier and the courier, usually veterans of U.S. wars, incoming agents trained at Fort Chatham now to counter that attack by selling a weapon. Must pass yearly medics. And see if we can scroll it up a little bit here. There's some pictures and stuff in this if you want to pull it up and take a look at those for yourself. The wheel is spinning, but the page ain't moving. So I'll tell you what, I think that I'm not entirely. Pull that up. So URL is in the description of the video for you. Move on here. That is quite interesting. I was not aware that nuclear being driven around the United States. Holy, that's just creepy. Wowie woo. This next one's off the telegraph.co.uk, and it's got some video in it. The robot has just first day on the job at a restaurant in California, replacing humans at the grill. Mastered the art of cooking the perfect burger and has just started work at Cali Burger, a fast food chain. The robotic kitchen assistant, which its makers say, in just 5 minutes out of robotics. Like self-driving vehicles, our system continuously learns from its experiences to improve over time, said David Zito, chief executive officer of Mizo Robotics. Starting with the relative of cooking burgers, our proprietary AI software allows our kitchen assistants to be, and therefore can be trained to help with almost any dangerous task in a commercial kitchen, cutting vegetables or final plating. Cameras and sensors help Flippy to determine whether the burger is fully cooked. The robot places them on a bun. A human worker then takes over and adds the condiments. Robots will be introduced at Cali Burger next year with the aim of installing them in 50 of their restaurants by the end of 2019. Cali Burgers say the benefits, including making faster food safer with fewer errors. Meet Boston Dynamics nightmare inducing new robot handle. He's pretty terrifying, and there's a link take you to that if you want to know more about these robots. This is what happens when you raise the companies are going to find another way to replace these workers and not pay the $15 an hour. Here's off of BizPack Review. Tapper's 7-year-old son taunts him with fake news label. I thought this was the cutest story. It says it doesn't get any better than this. CNN anchor Jake Tapper is now trolled by his 7-year-old son. That's from Tapper's own mouth, as he explained on Friday while talking with MTV senior political correspondent Anne Marie Cox at the South Festival in Austin. He now does an impression where whenever I'm bothering him, he says fake news. The term has became a part of the American lexicon when it comes to compromised media courtesy of President Donald Trump. The CNN anchor added that he wants his children to be proud of the work he does. I've got 2 kids, Tapper said. They're going to someday read back about this period in our history, and I want them to be proud of me. Although Tapper should keep at the forefront of his mind when on the air. Either way, social media users, if the fake news fits, wear it. Sampling of the responses on Twitter. One says, sounds like a smart kid. And another one sends a picture of Tapper. It says, Jake the fake. And underneath he's put Daddy's home. Another one says, it's where straight from the honest mouth of babes. Another one says, Americans call you fake news. Take the hint. And another one has a picture of Tapper shaking hands with Obama. It says, fake yapper meets wire. Oh, this is too funny. The next one I have is off of BizPack Review. And no joke. Food Network's pioneer woman accused of racism when her husband prefers buffalo over Asian wings. Again, no joke. Pioneer woman accused of racism prefers buffalo over Asian wings. Are you kidding me? Food Network star Network star Ree Drummond is being attacked because of what some have called a racist segment on her show Pioneer Woman. Which aired for the first time in 2012, but has recently been shown again on the network, showed Drummond serving her husband and his friend Asian wings as a prank, traditional buffalo wings. For a normal person, it might appear to be a simple prank. You tell someone they are getting one thing and give them another, but naturally offended leftists, it is a racist segment that means Drummond, her husband, and his friend don't like Asian people. Eater.com described what it found to be the most racist aspect of the prank. Episode, the Food Network star explains that her husband loves classic buffalo wings and she wants to pull a prank on him by serving the Asian iteration. I like to mess with my spouse. I can't help it, she says. The offensive conceit, college buddies would be revolted by Asian wings, was clearly written into the show before it was even filmed. No, that is the entire point of the prank. If you tell someone you're making them a hamburger and then give them curry, they might be disappointed because they love hamburgers, as her husband loves buffalo wings. It doesn't mean they dislike Indian people. Called out by the Thick Dumpling Skin blog. There isn't a single show on the Food Network hosted by someone Asian unless you count Iron Chef, and we don't. Why must we watch non-Asian cooks who can't pronounce it, shirkasa, chopstick drawer, show us how to make our own dishes? And How come when they do, we have to watch as their entire family mocks it like Pioneer Woman? Not everyone was convinced of the vicious against Asian wings. One lady tweets, the libtard SJWs have attacked wonderful conservative pioneer woman Ree Drummond of Food Network. Another one says, the pioneer woman's racist Asian hot wing reveal, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Get over it. Another one says, anywhere even close to racist, simply or simple bit of fun, not at all anti-Asian. Another one said, could it be because they are anything but buffalo? And why does a food site have to have the agenda? I cannot escape this crap. No, it was buffalo wing swap out joke. Buffalo wings were expected. Swap couldn't have been any other dish. People love to be offended. It says, watch the segment and then check out Drummond's recipe for both wings. And there's video in this if you want to pull that up and view that. Holy smoke. Is very bizarre, but fiction. This is off the Inquisitor. Wild boars run amok in Japan after Fukushima disaster, causing over $15 million in damages. Wild boars are responsible for the destruction of agricultural Japanese communities following the Fukushima disaster. The wild boars are able to reproduce in the exclusion zone, increasing the population of the boars by 330% since the Fukushima meltdown. Meanwhile, the boars are leaving the zone and surrounding farmlands, resulting in over $15 million in damages to the area. Now the government is calling for humans, but the move is proving difficult as the boars outbreed the culling efforts. The Daily Mail reports an unlikely problem, which Fukushima nuclear disaster. Following the nuclear accident, while boars in the nuclear exclusion zone and began reproducing at high rates as humans left the area. With no one to control the boar reproduction in the area, the boar population grew 130% since the disaster. Japan are being overwhelmed by rampaging radioactive wild boars in wake of Fukushima. Adam K. Olson says, with the population surging, mayhem and surrounding farmlands, with the beast causing over $15 million in damages to the agricultural areas. As a result of problems associated with the wild boars, the local Japanese authorities have asked hunters to begin culling the animals. These are calling in hunters to cull the boars, but the animals are breeding so quickly that mass graves are now and incinerators are running out of capacity. To the Times, wild boar meat is typically sought after as one of the healthiest red meats in protein. However, due to the radiation contamination, the wild boar food source, the boars are considered to be a health threat if eaten. Living in the exclusion zone of the Fukushima disaster have been tested for radioactivity. Sadly, for those hoping to consume the boars, the meat tested 300 times the legal limit. Therefore, the boars cannot be used as a food source. Population boom due to the lack of humans in the area to cull them accordingly. RT notes that the boars are a problem for the farmland, but also for children and people in the area who must protect themselves from the beasts. Allegedly works in Japan near a community with radioactive, says that school children are being sent home with umbrellas to protect themselves from the creatures. Was a wild boar loose near the junior high school I taught at in Japan. Teachers escorted kids home wielding umbrellas. It was nuts. the health of the boars themselves, despite the boars' food source being contaminated with radiation from the Fukushima nuclear meltdown, noted in strikingly good health. While the meat is contaminated for consumption, the boars seem rather healthy, according to scientists in the area. In fact, the exclusion zone seem to be thriving in their new radioactive environment. While the boars are healthy, it is noted that an estimated 130 humans may die in the coming years due to cancer caused by the nuclear disaster. Small animals such as rodents and insects have reportedly been adversely affected by the radiation in the area. It says, what do you think about the unusual negative side of Fukushima nuclear disaster presenting form of a radioactive wild boar problem? Do you think work for local communities, or will the wars continue to cause havoc in the area? And says, let us know in the comments section. There's quite a few comments. Pull that up and take a look at that. So, all the news that I have for you today, I've cleaned the slate. If you like what I'm doing, give it a thumbs up. Share it on your social media so everybody gets to enjoy the news. Subscribe yet, please do. And that way, have a great day.